It's something deeper. It's something deeper than that. What is it? It's a covenant. Something deeper than that. Standards?
What?
Standards?
I think we've been given the beginnings of government.
Whose government?
Man's.
Who?
Man's,
Man.
on some level, man's been
No,
appointed. I think
not
it's,
man's government.
well, I think it's been given by God, but
Whose government?
Yahweh.
DJ's got the right answer.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim.
No,
That's
you
right.
Oh,
That's right.
it's wrong, Jim. So, good point. I was driving down the road the other day, and I do that a lot. A lot of time to think, and turned on the radio, and the local guy in Amarillo, which broadcasts all of this area, posed this question. And I thank God he's here for a reason. He has everything for a reason, right?
Amen.
And here was the question. This is what he proposed. He goes, you know, our government is proposing another law to deal with the home mortgage and securities and things like that. And what I'm hearing from people is that we do not need to pass more laws. We just need to live right.
That sounds like things should go.
We should live right. So I'm sitting there and I heard that and I said, yeah, that sounds good. Then God put this little voice in me. Definition of right. It's a moral issue.
For sure.
How can you have morals in a country where morals are subjective or relative? Case in point. We live in well, let's just go through it. I'm going to give you a lot of definitions and terms to prove my point. How many of you love this country? How many of you love democracy? Y'all love democracy? Okay. Hopefully by the end of this, a Bluetooth audio aerial carriage. Stop using headset. Yes, stop using it. Okay, so what is a democracy? Let's think about this. I'm not going to say yay or nay, but democracy, it's a government by the people, a form of government in which the supreme power is vested in people and exercised directly by them or by their elected agents under a free electoral system. Do we live in a democracy? No, we don't.
No.
What do we live in?
Republic, representative republic.
We live in a republic, which is a state in which the supreme power rests in the body of citizens entitled to vote and is exercised by representatives chosen directly or indirectly by them. So when you go cast your vote, you're voting for a representative who's supposed to go up, and in December they voted for the president, and the president was elected. It was all about electoral votes. Remember that? Well, how did many of y'all know? I believe some of those representatives, if they wanted to, they could vote however they chose. Did you know that?
We don't know.
And plus, the representatives we have in the House and the Senate, they can vote according to how they feel. So that's how our government runs, right?
And every 2 to 6 years, you can choose to change them if you'd like.
So we live in a republic. We want to, and the founders of our country wanted us to live in harmony, didn't they? Do we all want to live in harmony?
Right.
We want to have peace and get along with everybody? Okay?
But we know that doesn't work. We must look at Israel.
So we all have the same objective. We want to live in a harmonious land, right? Where everybody gets along. We can sleep with our windows open and our doors open. Does that sound good?
Yes.
So why is there a problem?
There's no honesty.
Principle. A noun, accepted or professed rule of action or conduct. A person of good moral principles. A fundamentally primary or general law or truth for which others are derived. The principles of modern physics, different principles. Well, we're supposed to live by principles, right? Well, moral. Pertaining to or concerned with the principles or rules of right conduct or distinction between right and wrong. Ethics. So we should have ethics, correct? A system of moral principles, morals of the culture. Why do we need more laws if everyone would just do the right thing?
Well, your right isn't necessarily my right. His right and her right and their right.
Right.
Philosophy.
Here for the Greeks.
We are a Greek mindset. Where does philosophy thinking come from?
Great.
The Greeks used to sit around all the time and philosophize. I love this. The rational investigation of truths, principles, being, knowledge, or conduct. We think we're pretty smart, don't we? Hang on. Which leads to opinion.
Yes, my opinion, your opinion.
You getting it? Are you starting to understand? Okay, so we sit around and we philosophize things. We look at, well, I see it this way, you see it this way. And Jay sees it that way. Well, I like the way Phil sees it. I don't like the way Jay sees it. And DJ likes the way Jay sees it.
That's not true. That's his opinion.
So what I'm starting, so in this wonderful society of harmonious democracy, where we have philosophy and opinion, we're starting to put little pieces of sand in between us. And if I get sand in my shoes and I start to walk, what happens?
You get a
It
blister.
starts to hurt and it starts to rub. So I'm going to start to do something. And when it gets bad enough, what happens? The blister. Something bad's going to happen, isn't it? Okay.
Worst part about opinion is you can change your opinion too.
So, if we have philosophy, we have opinion, things become relative. Having a meaning only in relation to someone else, not absolute. It's getting kind of scary.
Falling away from it.
Kind of sandy, huh?
So we have the conservatives, we have the moderates, and we have
Life's a beach.
the liberals. We only have one liberal today.
You're sure glad you didn't call me that. Those are fighting words.
Well, you're just a moderate.
Those are fighting words.
Yeah.
Which leads to relativism, right? Relative. So, when I'm driving down the road, going around in the deal, and he says, we just need to live right. We live in a world, a nation, that everything is relative. Am I right? It's true.
Well, that's the way you see it.
That's right. And you see it too. And what I think is right is not what you think is right. So why does Walmart or anyone else not have any ammo right now? Go ahead.
Does that mean, could you stretch that and say that's why my brother might actually not be my brother? Because he's a relative, but that can change.
Depends if I like him or not.
Well, and because you may become my brother
That's right.
instead.
That's right.
You're holding a criteria of judgment, man.
That's right.
So y'all having fun with this so far? Making you think, aren't I? Okay, so that leads to, if everything's relative,
Taking debate.
then we're going to debate about it. Gabriel, it's my point's right. And you're going to say, your point's right. Right?
Good thing we don't do that in here, huh?
Not
which
yet.
leads to one of us is going to override the other. What's going on in this nation now? One group is being oppressed, or one group is being raised up. It will sadden you to know, I did some statistics this morning, about 50% average is Medicaid babies. And I'm not bringing a point except for that means that those people are supported by the government. Totally. So that means the other half are working and being taxed. And I'm not saying that that's bad, other than there's going to come a point when the people who are paying taxes get to a point to support the people who are not paying taxes, bloodshed will occur.
There's people also that do work and they lower themselves just to get the government to pay for it. They
That's
have
right.
money, they own a lucrative business.
So
That's
we're going
just a
to,
subsidy.
and we're going to cover some of that today because I want to go into kingdom living later on. And what is kingdom living? But just to show our nation is sick right now. And then if I compromise and if I'm forced to do something because Jay has a bigger gun than I do, and I am not brave enough at this point or mad enough at this point to do anything about it, so then I'm going to tolerate it.
Right.
So what's my level of tolerance?
Depends on how big your gun is.
We all have tolerance, right? Right now in this room, I could go to each one of you and you could tell me something that you're upset about this government right now. But you're not doing any or saying anything because you're tolerating it.
Forget about government. There's stuff in my life
That you're tolerating.
that I'm tolerating.
Exactly.
It's not about your influence on me. It's, my flesh or the world's influence.
So there's a lot of,
Yeah.
so what is it going to take to get you to break? Where's your breaking point? We all
Right.
have a breaking point.
It's that howling dog on the porch.
Right.
Pain. Pain.
When I begin to tolerate and compromise, gives away to an amoral society.
Never heard that word.
Where are we today in our world, in our nation? Everybody I talk to is amazed at what's on TV, amazed at what they see at the mall, amazed at how people react. Why? Can y'all see the aggression that is occurring?
But those same people still watch those TV shows, they still go to the mall, they still participate in all that stuff. Nobody has gotten to the point where they don't accept the unacceptable stuff and say, I'm not gonna put up with that, I'm
That was
not
the
gonna have
previous
to do
word.
it.
Yeah, they don't block the channels.
That
That's
was
because
tolerance.
the worst thing that people want to be called is judgmental. Nobody wants to be called
Politically
judgmental.
correct.
Because if you're called judgmental, that means that you are able to establish boundaries.
So would another word for amoral be someone who just doesn't think, they just give in to whatever's going on?
Could be. Everybody else is doing it, so I might as well too. Hey, if everybody else is having a good time or calling it a good time, I might as well go out and have my good time.
DJ, the addition of the word, the letter A on the front of it, think of it like asexual. It has no sex.
Everything's right.
I mean, it's the addition of the A is what changes that.
If I'm
Isn't that
amoral,
interesting? One little letter.
I, to myself, I can't be amoral because I view myself as right. Everything I do is right.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong.
And that means there's no boundaries to your behavior.
There's no boundaries. If it feels good, do it.
Well, there may be self-imposed. There may be boundaries. You have boundaries.
You raise your kids, we don't do that, not in our house. I know y'all do.
Well, I'm not talking about this group. I'm just saying where our nation is right now.
Yeah.
We are.
If we as a people do that,
Good.
Marty.
I'm just painting a picture here because it goes along with today's Torah study. When all this starts to happen, then we get into dogma. What's dogma? A religious doctrine or system of doctrines proclaimed by ecclesiastical authority as true. Phil and I believe this, and we're just going to start our own church. and we say it's true, and you better believe it.
They do that all the time, don't they?
Y'all like that? Now, if you don't like Philonise Church, there's some free land right over there. You can build your own church building. How many churches do we have in this nation?
More per
Not
capita,
enough.
mother, than all of them.
And the reason we do is because of the definitions and the words I gave you before. Yes, Jim?
In relation to Leah's point, though, I think what it goes back to, pointing back to why do we tolerate what we say is amoral or immoral, goes back to that, one of your first points was this desire for harmony. And it becomes the overriding, we seek harmony more so than we decide we need moral decision.
We seek a false harmony. not
Well,
a
it's true, but it's a relative harmony.
It's relative harmony.
And part of that false harmony comes from if you decide that you are going to have no boundaries, you don't want anybody setting boundaries.
True.
So we all believe that everyone has the right to do what they want. Do what thou wilt, and
Ooh,
don't
careful
judge
there.
me.
Careful with that one.
Well, I know where that statement comes from.
Yeah,
And it comes
exactly.
from the belief that you can do whatever you want.
Right.
As
And
long as it
nobody-
doesn't infringe on
Yeah.
mine.
That's right. And don't infringe on me.
So we get into dogma, which leads into doctrine. They created a body of teaching of a religious, political, or philosophical group presented for acceptance or belief. Dogma. Doctrine. Man-made. Made up. Well, you know, this Bible was written a long time ago. You know, we've changed since then. We should be able to live, we should accept all people. We should be tolerant. You know, gosh, God was mean. Why do y'all keep bringing up that Old Testament stuff? I just don't understand. Okay, so let's go on.
Get on here.
This was posted the other day on the White House News. This was White House.
That's not your paper?
This is not mine.
Oh.
White House responds to
Oh, yeah.
succession petitions calls for unity instead. This country is almost set for war.
Oh, yes.
I'll tell you, there's people out there right now that will go to battle over the slightest upset. Am I right? Why? Because the sand in our shoes is starting to hurt. We are reaching our tolerance level. Okay, so my question is, how much do you love this country and will it survive? I'm not there yet, but let's look at this. Because this statement just does not make sense. The White House responded to a handful of petitions calling for various states to be given the right to secede from the United States, calling for unity and participatory government instead. In a nation of 300 million, listen to this, each of with their own set of deeply held beliefs. 300 million people with each their own set of deeply held beliefs.
Does that mean we wouldn't have to vote any longer?
No, this means, Shirley, that you're right, what you believe and what Mel believes are totally different, and what Gabriel believes is totally different, and we're going to have to all get along. Even though what you see to her is offensive, and vice versa. You're just going to get over it, Shirley.
No.
Is
That's
your
what
next
that
word
says.
chaos?
Is that what that says?
That's 300 million doctrines.
300 million doctors. So can a nation survive with 300 million people who don't believe anything?
No.
That'll last
But
about maybe.
They do believe.
It's lasted 200 years, a little over 200 years,
Oh, okay.
but it's not going to last much longer. Now, am I up here to preach that the United States is going to fall? I don't have to preach that. It's going to happen.
How do they figure 300 million
That's how many people live in this nation.
in just America?
Yes.
Oh.
So, can a republic survive? Any republic?
No.
Never.
Maybe Texas.
Why not? Because of what I just said. What's going to happen, it's going to start off harmonious, right? They're going to get a bunch of people together and they're going to write some documents and we're all going to understand, we're all going to feel good, and we're all going to kind of believe the same thing. A week later, One person is gonna say, well, you know, I just don't quite see it that way. And he's gonna go talk to his friend Phil. And Phil's gonna say, well, you know, I just don't quite see it that way either. And so then that seed of discontent is gonna start to grow. Yes, dear.
Our founding fathers all wrote and stated that a republic would only survive as long as it stood on the law of God. But that if it moved from the law of God, it would not survive.
Yep. So which goes to my next point. Matthew 12:25. Yeshua, the living word of the Heavenly Father. How many believe what Yeshua says is real and true? What's he say?
And Jesus knew their thoughts, and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation.
He will not stand.
It will not stand.
So, when you hear people stating that we've got to do something for this nation, no. We need to do something in your life, each one of us. And I'm not going to preach to the group as a, well, we need to go out and start voting or do whatever. No, I'm here to talk to, God has made me look in my life. And so my job today is for you to look in your life. At your heart, at your soul, at your thoughts. Because that's what we're here for today. He steps on my toes, I will kick you in the shins. Okay? So, if a democracy doesn't work, then what hope is there for mankind? Is there hope for us? If democracy doesn't work, what's our hope? Theocracy. What's the definition? Theocracy. A form of government in which God or a deity is recognized as supreme civil ruler. How many of y'all want to live under a theocracy?
Is that just theology and democracy mixed?
Well, you may get to do that under the Muslim theocracy.
Yeah.
No. But
that's their
God.
contention.
I didn't say an idol.
Absolutely.
I said God. I will not live under a false man-made deity. There's only one God.
So when you live under a human government that claims to be a theocracy?
They are not a theocracy, because they're not.
I'm asking you a question.
What's that?
When the Antichrist, the false prophet, or the anti-Messiah shows up, proclaims to be Yeshua, it sets up a theocracy government on earth.
It's a false theocracy.
Okay.
Because I know my God, and we're going to talk about that in today's fourth portion. This is what's so cool. Is what you saw today in today's fourth portion, we will see again. We will see again.
So will it be the truth?
Isaiah 9:6. For unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God. The everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, and upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts to perform this. This is Yeshua coming, and he will be our king. He will set up his theocracy. God's government. What we see in today's Torah portion is not only a wedding, it is the establishing of a theocracy. And what we see as commandments in the church, it says we don't want to do that because we'll go under a curse. It's not for salvation, people. Not at all. It's for this. It tells me who I am in this government, this land. It tells me my right. We're coming into a future government in which it's a servant's kingdom. In a servant's kingdom, You know how much right I have to think of myself? It's 0. My 100% of my attention should be on 2 things in a servant's kingdom. What are those 2 things? God and you. I should not even be thinking of myself at all. That's a servant's kingdom. You're first. He's first. Make sense? So what God is setting up in His 10 Commandments are not things that says, if you do all these, you'll be saved. It's no. If you do all these, you won't get sand in your shoes and you won't be upset at each other and you can live in peace. The wolf will lie down with the lamb. Because if I'm not thinking about myself, and I'm thinking of you, and you're thinking of me, are we going to live in a harmonious world? Isn't that pretty cool? It's a government He's setting up. It's a rules for people to abide by. And guess what? That's how we will live.
One day.
We will not float on a cloud and sit there and go, man, I wish I had an ice cream sundae right now. And you just one pop into my hand. That's not what heaven is.
Heaven is the kingdom. Heaven is the kingdom.
There you go. Okay, so let's look at today's Torah question. So is that kind of cool? So are we all on the same page?
Amen.
The 10 Commandments, or the commandments given by God, are nothing more than a constitutional way that we can live together in a harmonious way. And if we disagree, we have a foundation that never changes. Right? So there's no questions asked. So opinion doesn't come into it. Philosophy doesn't come into it. Unless you want to argue with God. Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do you become a citizen of that government?
There's only one way we'll talk about that.
So, as a government, as a business, as a family, anytime that we look and, let's say our government, has legalized homosexual marriages, they're doing 2 things. One, they're taking what God has put out and basically saying that they're smarter than God, or arguing or going against what is in there, saying that they know better, thus making it to where they can make any laws that they're actually wanting.
Right. So let's talk about what has been going on. Let's go to Daniel. Let's go to Daniel 7. And then we'll get into this. In verse 21, as I watched, this one was waging war against the saints and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came to pronounce his judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is the 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are like 10 kings and will come from this kingdom. After them another king will arise different from the other ones. He will subdue 3 kings. And here's the important part. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints. From an Old Testament point of view, give me a definition of a saint.
Set apart. Set apart.
And?
Holy, set apart.
Okay, in order to be wholly set apart, what am I doing?
You're set apart for